Obviously, you saw the power go out here in downtown Augusta not too long ago. It appears to be back on now. Every week, hundreds of you are picking these up off store shelves. This is the jail report. You've probably heard of it. At 7 o'clock, we will find out more answers because right now all we have are questions. It's only Friday the 13th. Why not open an umbrella inside?
You hold on to that one,
all right.
John. There you
There we go.
So if you're looking for
Actually,
George
Kim would
said
like it better if it was like this. And George, who took that picture?
That was Kathy Weidman.
The name rings a bell.
She's our boss.
She's the boss.
Yes.
And what we found here, if you'll look down here, is about an inch of water, maybe even 2 inches of water. A live look at breaking news out of Philadelphia tonight. An Amtrak train has crashed, and preliminary reports from the ground, and you can see that is not a pretty sight, say that several people do appear to be injured. This is train 188. It was traveling from Washington, D.C. to New York City. If you're familiar at all with the northeastern part of our country, you know that folks up there use these Amtrak trains to get around from all of those large cities that are located very close to each other up there. They use this a lot more than we do down here in the southeast. This train was apparently the front of the train was going into a turn when there were reports of it shaking. Again, this just happening in the last half hour or so that we've gotten word of this, so the reports are very preliminary. But again, Amtrak train 188 going from DC to NYC has crashed tonight in Philadelphia. Atlanta public school educators sentenced to prison on racketeering charges. I'm John Hart.
And I'm Kimberly Scott. Thank you for joining us for News Channel 6 at 5:30.
Your local headlines at the bottom of the hour. Aiken County authorities searching for a suspect in a drive-by shooting on Diamond Street in Clearwater. Investigators say 16-year-old Gail McFadden died after she was shot in the stomach. Sheriff Michael Hunt says they are following up on leads. They're looking for a blue Honda Civic. And a new face on Augusta's commission. Sean Franham will take over the District 7 seat. He will replace Hap Harris, who was appointed to that seat in September to replace Donnie Smith after he resigned. Franham will serve the remainder of Smith's term, which expires next year. Then he will be eligible to serve 2 more terms if elected. A Florida mailman in custody after he landed a small helicopter on the grounds of the Capitol building in Washington late this afternoon. The man says he was delivering a political message to Congress. He flew a gyrocopter, that little contraption right there, and landed it right there on the front lawn. The Capitol building went into lockdown. Traffic in the area shut down. Law enforcement officials brought in. Robots cleared the scene of any hazards. Nobody hurt, no harm, no foul. The man had no prior criminal history, though I would imagine that's about to change. Now President Obama has to sell the final deal to skeptical lawmakers. Karen Travers in Washington tonight.
Karen Travers, ABC News, Washington.
Former NFL star Aaron Hernandez will spend the rest of his life in prison. The former New England Patriot found guilty of first-degree murder. Odin Lloyd was shot 6 times in an industrial park near Hernandez's home. Lloyd was dating the sister of Hernandez's fiance. Hernandez's lawyer acknowledged during closing arguments that Hernandez was there when Lloyd was killed, but tried to pin the shooting on Hernandez's 2 friends, saying his client was a 23-year-old kid who did not know what to do. Instead, the jury believed prosecutors who said Hernandez planned the killing, then helped cover it up.
The jury found that he was just a man who committed a brutal murder.
For their part, the prosecution team said they drew strength from the willingness of Lloyd's family to show up every day and hear the details of all of this in this process to deliver justice. Marcy Gonzalez has the latest on those cases and the response.
Marcy Gonzalez, ABC News, New York.
Former educators convicted in the Atlanta public schools cheating scandal say they will appeal those prison sentences. A judge sentenced 8 of the 10 former teachers to prison yesterday for changing answers on standardized tests and racketeering that went on for as long as 15 years. The judge actually agreed to leniency the day before the sentencing, saying he'd allow prosecutors to offer plea deals, but only 2 of them took them.
All I want from any of these people is just to take some responsibility.
According to the indictment, the cheating conspiracy dates all the way back to 2001. Hey, George Myers is joining the show now to take a look at our forecast. George, how's it going?
Yeah, kind of wet and cloudy and gloomy today.
A surprising warning about nail polish remover.
Oh, you have my attention. Forget making your nails look weird, possibly. This is a much more sinister thing you should be worried about. I gotta be honest, when I heard adult coloring books, I thought this was taking a complete different route, but this is cool too.
You know, it's I guess therapeutic to color. I think
That's what it says. It says,
color.
that they've research shows that kids, they have lower stress levels when they use coloring books. So she
Yeah.
thought, why not have adults do it? Maybe we should get a couple of coloring.
Yeah, pass them out in the newsroom.
A
here.
mystery buyer is now the proud owner of the Pope's iPad. An auction house in Uruguay says it was recently sold for just over $30,500. The iPad is engraved with His Holiness Francisco and Vatican Internet Service, March 2013, in Spanish and Italian. So you know it's legit. The iPad also came with a certificate signed by Pope Francis' personal secretary. Last year, a Harley-Davidson motorcycle donated by Pope Francis sold for over $280,000
Wow.
at an auction.
The Pope had a Harley Davidson.
That's kind of interesting, isn't
I
it?
know, it
Maybe was
is.
just donated
I love
by
it,
him.
though.
I'm sure he wrote, I don't know, maybe he did. He's the cool Pope, right?
Yeah, he's cool though. I like
Hey,
it.
go to WJBF.com. We'll continue the conversation during the commercial break, and then
John and Kim? Yeah.
George, appreciate it. And the very briefly seen Brad Means is standing by with a look at what's coming up at News Channel 6 at 6. It's an ancient festival celebrated in Egypt that's kind of like our Thanksgiving.
To welcome spring, a meal is prepared, and the main dish is rotten fish.
Long story short, they preserve it in salt, they age it for like a month, and they eat it, and basically everybody gets sick, and some people even die from it. I don't really know why anyone would ever want to eat this thing, but it is a tradition, so they continue to do it.
Isn't that like sardines?
Yeah, something like that. News Channel 6 at 6 is next. It's as routine as starting the car. Directions to 1001 Reynolds Street. Plugging your destination into your GPS.
Starting route with 1001 Reynolds Street.
But is saving minutes off your trip taking years off your brain?
What we need to recognize is that, okay, this is affecting us in ways that we hadn't thought of before.
Dr. Alexandra Roach is a professor of psychology at USC Aiken.
If we're not doing things to help build the gray matter in our brain by challenging ourselves cognitively, then we're not really providing that base, that scaffolding that's going to help us in the long run.
A British study found that when we start a trip, our brain naturally maps out a route.
Turn right onto Marks Church Road, then turn right onto I-20 East.
But when we use our GPS, the brain doesn't do this. And over time, that can become a problem.
Do you lose the abilities if you no longer practice them? And that's definitely going to be true.
Dr. David Blake is a neuroscientist at the Medical College of Georgia at Georgia Regents University.
Will that have some sort of overall decline in cognitive ability as you age? And we know that within that one little milieu of cognitive ability, you will decrease.
In other words, the more you use your GPS or your list of contacts, the more you'll lose the ability to read a map or remember a phone number.
Keep right on I-20 East toward Columbia.
We need to start looking at this as something that really is affecting us. There is this environmental impact on our brains and using this technology.
The two parts of the brain most involved with our ability to find our way to a destination are also two of the first to be damaged in age-related dementia. A Canadian study found that over-relying on our GPS can lead to underusing these parts of the brain.
Absolutely, there's a use it or lose it component to the brain.
However,
one realm of cognition is not going to have a huge impact on something like decline into dementia, but rather it's really the full range of domains.
Turn left onto River Watch Parkway.
Just because we're relying on our GPS and we're not paying attention to our surroundings doesn't mean our hippocampus is going to atrophy. We just need to make sure that we're stimulating our brains in other ways.
We do need to be cautious about the introduced new use of technology. Like I said, it's a wonderful new set of tools, but it has pros and cons.
It'll be interesting to see. We won't know, as I said, for decades what the actual effects of all this are.
Arrive. Turn right onto Wheeler Road.
okay, so using your GPS won't necessarily lead you to early onset dementia, but it can definitely be a factor.
One realm of cognition is not going to have a huge impact on something like decline into dementia, but rather it's really the full range of domains.
Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Snapchat, Vine, and what are we doing while we're looking at all this stuff?
A lot of this multimedia tasking by its nature is a sedentary activity.
Dr. Alexandra Roach is a professor of psychology at USC Aiken. She spent the last 6 years studying the effects of all this sitting around on the aging of the brain.
What I find most disturbing is this increase in obesity. And the long-term ramifications of that, we know that already. And so that's one thing that we could focus on now, knowing the outcome.
Long story short, sitting around packs on the pounds, which leads to obesity. Obesity is the '1 cause of diabetes, and
if you have diabetes, you're more likely to convert from mild cognitive impairment to Alzheimer's disease and dementia. So that is something that I think we can focus on as an issue that we really know how that could play out.
And all these devices seem to be stressing us out. A recent Sussex University study showed that people who routinely stare at more than one screen at a time show increased risk of depression and emotional problems.
We know there are certain forms of stress that are associated with internet use, especially constant availability stresses.
Research also shows stress leads to increased levels of cortisol, a hormone released by the adrenal gland. Cortisol can lead to obesity, and obesity leads to, well, I think you know the rest.
We're increasing their risk for vascular risk factors such as diabetes, hypertension, and these have been shown in adults to have effects on cognitive aging.
Simply put, the best way to keep your smartphone from making you dumber?
You want to stay in shape, you want to stay thin, and you want to use your brain on a regular basis over a wide range of cognitive domains.
It should just serve as a motivating factor for maybe reassessing how we interact with technology in our lives, so that we can make sure that we're not putting ourselves at a disadvantage for later.